Hindu History and the American School System.
As you know, the presentation of Hinduism and the history of India in American public schools is an ongoing concern of our community. 2 years ago, I asked the editors of Hinduism Today to produce a series of chapters to supplement the deficient or incorrect material presently in use. Last year, we presented Chapter 1 on ancient Indian history, which corrected many mistaken ideas. This year, we are pleased to present Chapter 2, covering 300 to 1100 CE. Unlike ancient Indian history, which is at least covered in the existing public school textbooks, this period is completely ignored, even though India was at the time the most populous and richest region of the world. Rajkumar Manikam and Isan Katir, whom I've asked to attend this conference on my behalf, have brought copies of the chapter from the October issue of Hinduism Today. Next, our managing editor, Arumugaswami, will give a short introduction to this new chapter and propose some action items.
Thank you, Bodhinatha. My name is Arumugaswami. I'm managing editor at Hinduism Today magazine, and we're going to talk today about the American school system and Hindu history as taught in it. We'll take up 3 topics in rapid succession. First, a short presentation of our new lesson, Hindu India 300 to 1100 CE. Second, an overview of how textbooks are produced for American schools. Third, action items for the consideration of this conference. You will recall seeing the first chapter of our history series at last year's conference. This year, we've published the second chapter in our October 2008 issue. It covers Indian history from 300 to 1100 CE, the Golden Age of India. The lesson was created in close collaboration with Dr. Shiva Bajpai, Professor Emeritus of History, California State University at Northridge. This first section covers India's geography, major kingdoms, economy, and principles of government. We'll flip through the pages and quote some highlights. From 300 to 1100 CE, India was a land of prosperity whose economic, religious, and cultural influence extended across Asia. Sanskrit was the language of religion, law, and government throughout India. Chinese Buddhist monk Faxian reported in the early 5th century, "In the cities and towns of India, the people are rich and prosperous." People believed that when the king was brave and just, the kingdom prospered. Shastras, local customs, advice of the wise, and the sound judgment of the king together produced sophisticated, stable, and enlightened government. The second section describes the social and economic life in the cities and in the villages, along with India's advancement in science, technology, and the arts. India produced a large amount of food, manufactured goods, and various items for domestic and foreign trade. The nation made advances in medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and metallurgy. People enjoyed prosperity, peace, and freedom, and achieved unprecedented artistic and cultural excellence. Cities served as centers of commerce and were largely self-governing. A 4-person ruling council included a representative from the big business community, the smaller merchants, and the guilds of artisans along with a chief clerk. Aryabhata, born in 476 CE, lived in the Gupta age. He determined that the earth is a sphere spinning on its axis. He calculated its circumference within just 67 miles. He understood and accurately predicted solar and lunar eclipses. He also made discoveries in mathematics. All these achievements created what historians call a classical age. India developed strong moral values and noble ethical principles. High standards of intellectual and artistic sophistication and refined patterns of living were set that served as models for the following generations. There are 2 pages from the ancient Tamil poem, The Ankle Bracelet, Shilapadikaram, which includes a charming description of the sophisticated urban life of Puhar, a port city south of Chennai. Quoting the text, "Near the harbor, seamen from far-off lands appeared at home. In the streets, hawkers were selling unguents, bath powders, cooling oils, flowers, perfume, incense. Weavers brought their fine silks and all kinds of fabrics made of wool or cotton. There were special streets for merchants of coral, sandalwood, myrrh, jewelry, faultless pearls, pure gold, and precious gems. Great rituals were performed in the temples of the unborn Shiva, of Murugan, the beauteous god of youth, of Valion, brother of Krishna, of the dark Vishnu, and of Indra himself, with his strings of pearls and his victorious parasol. The third section explains the importance of religion to people and how the kings enforced harmony amongst religions. It talks about the evolution of temple worship and the Bhakti movement, and briefly describes the Puranas, Ramayana, and Mahabharata. The Rashtrakuta rulers, for example, not only patronized Saivism and Vaishnavism, but also supported Jainism and Buddhism. Rulers of the period welcomed Christians, Jews, Muslims, and Parsis, and encouraged them to settle in their kingdoms and practice their faiths. This policy maintained religious harmony in society and even aided international trade. Many saints of this time preached the importance of devotion to God in what is called the Bhakti movement. Adoration for God, known as Bhakti, stresses one's personal relationship with the divine as a love-centered path of spiritual attainment. It complemented meditation and yoga, offering an all-embracing means to enlightenment and liberation from birth and rebirth through divine grace. Temples were central to the social and economic life of the community. Large temples also served as centers for education and training in music and dance. The Puranas record an important feature of Hinduism, the assimilation of different ethnic and religious groups. They tell us that earlier migrants into India, such as the Greeks, Persians, and Central Asian peoples, including the Hunas, had been completely absorbed into Indian society and Hindu religion. Various tribes were also brought into the mainstream, and their beliefs and practices assimilated. The stories of these peoples are recorded in the Puranas. At the end is a simple test on the main points. How, one might ask, does this chapter fit into the K-12 school curriculum? Not very well is the unfortunate answer. In the California Content Standards for 7th grade, which cover this time period, the word India does not appear once. That says something about the Western sense of history, doesn't it? India's economic, political, artistic, scientific, and technological achievements are ignored. Worse, the California standards call for the study of Muslim achievements in these same fields from 800 CE onward, without mentioning that the knowledge the Muslims built upon came from India in the first place. Now, why is it that Hindus have to write their own material to get India and Hinduism presented correctly in public schools? The answer lies in the process by which textbooks are created and adopted by each state's school system. You might think this is a process steeped in academic expertise and scholarly perspicacity. You would, however, be mistaken. Taman Ansari of San Francisco has vividly explained the situation to us in an article which appears on Edutopia's website, along with this cartoon carefully delineating both the creation and adoption process for America's school textbooks. For those of you who do not recognize the cartoon style, this is a Rube Goldberg machine, defined to be one which accomplishes by extremely complex roundabout means what actually, or seemingly, could be done simply. An apt description of many aspects of the textbook creation process. For a period of 9 years, Ansari, a noted author, worked for Harcourt Brace, one of the leading publishers of U.S. textbooks. From his experience came this article, The Muddle Machine, Confessions of a Textbook Editor, an exposé of the politics of educational publishing. He begins, "Some years ago I signed on as an editor at a major publisher of elementary school and high school textbooks, filled with the idealistic belief that I'd be working with equally idealistic authors to create books that would excite teachers and fill young minds with big ideas. Not so. Who writes these things, people ask me. I have to tell them, without a hint of irony, no one. It's symptomatic of the whole muddled mess that is the $4.3 billion textbook industry." He goes on,
Textbooks are a core part of the curriculum, as crucial to the teacher as a blueprint is to a carpenter, so one might assume they are conceived, researched, written, and published as unique contributions to advancing knowledge. In fact, most of these books fall far short of their important role in the educational scheme of things.